Brunch culture.
We want to talk about faith. We want to talk about politics. We want to talk about race. We want to talk about pop culture. Literally, everything is up for discussion, and that's what brunch culture is about.
It's about a thing. Feel real good. Wave your hands in the air and lick 2 shots in the air.
Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture.
I can't. Imagine if she would have been our FLOTUS.
I can't even imagine that. It's such a depressing thought. And it's just because you can't even really take it seriously, right? Like,
yeah.
Besides, I don't want to ride on nobody's looks and stuff. Like, everybody, style is relative. So, style, that's cool. But, like, this song, this national anthem,
Yeah. And for those who don't know, we're talking about when Ben Carson's wife sung the national anthem. And we were kind of confused and concerned about what was taking place.
It seemed like it was a skit from like SNL, right? Like it was a joke.
When we go back to that style piece, though, I think that some we have to say is not relative. I think that, at a certain point we have to say, that's just not right. It's not a relative thing.
It's 2000 at the time. It's 2016. Just come back to
it's an absolute truth thing, and I just. I want to take a hard stance on that because there's something was definitely wrong.
It's relative. Her style is relative. You never know. You've been around. She 60 something. You might get to that point.
But
Lisa.
You know what? She did wear stockings. So Juanita Bynum, according to her, she
is a woman of God. She is not gonna be busting it wide open in the corner with the deacons. She just can't lift it up because she ain't got no drawers on. What? Because folks is out here needing stockings in 2017. Thank you, Dr. Bynum. What can we do without you?
But yeah, her husband, obviously, this week, he gave us some comments speaking to the HUD of staff about slaves being immigrants and coming over and having a dream. I don't know if any of the slaves were dreaming of anything but getting free. I don't know if they were dreaming an American dream. I doubt it.
And they surely, weren't dreaming that, oh my gosh, we're going to come over here and we're going to work so hard and our children are just going to be so prosperous and able to, bruh, what is this? This idea that I got frustrated when I actually, that's why, things bother me. Really, really bothered me. I ended up posting about it. And so I posted about it on Facebook, but it was so frustrating because it's like, dude, we have so many reasons to respect you. We have so many reasons to like you and to revere you and to.
And we did like him before he got into politics.
Right. It's like to be so proud of you and what you've done, what you've been able to do, what you represent, how you inspire people, to believe in their ability to think and their intellect and all of these great things. And you keep making these dumb statements that aren't warranted. Nobody needs it. Why are you and even if you thought afterwards him saying, they were involuntary immigrants. Bro, what are you? No, these people were captured by savages. These people were purchased by savages and brought over here and in the most brutal of ways treated like animals, nothing, not regarded as human beings. These are our ancestors, and you're saying, oh no, well they were immigrants, involuntary immigrants, but still immigrants nonetheless. Let's just be honest about what happened, man. That is so, and it frustrates me too, because it's this consistent push, I feel to sanitize slavery. And there was this one video that maybe I reposted it. It was a lady that was saying, when we start to talk about the things that happened during the Holocaust and saying like that was the most brutal, I think it's a person that said like that's the most brutal and embarrassing things to the human race that happened in history. And she was like, this black lady was like, it was the most brutal, but it was the most brutal thing that was recorded. Ours was not recorded. So it's like it's this constant push by people to say that, oh, it wasn't that bad, or, it didn't last that long, or all these people were somehow helped, the slaves that came over, ultimately they were somehow helped because look at where we are now. Like that, no, I can't buy into that. I can't accept that this idea that, they needed to experience or they deserve to experience what they experienced so that we can somehow inherit like the greatness of what it is to be in today's time. Like, I'm not buying that, folks. I just can't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, people try to say, well, President Obama used the term immigrants. But I think he used it in a different sense. He was like, these were unwilling immigrants versus Ben Carson saying these are immigrants with a dream. It's two different ways of using it. And I think that's important that we make that correlation and not trying to put them on the same, like they're saying the same
because
thing.
They're not. It's not even close. You know what I'm saying? And contextually, if you think about the context in which it was said in by President Obama, it's said from the standpoint of like, hey, if you look at the basis of what just an immigrant is, if you look at the idea, the concept of coming from one place and migrating to another, okay, I can get it. But you gotta understand like what it means to say that no, these quote unquote immigrants were forced here. So like if you try to look at the mechanics of what it means to actually move from one place and migrate to another, yes, but it was like a forced upon migration. Like nobody asked for this stuff. So and in the context of which Ben Carson was saying it, he was saying it in terms of, these slaves were immigrants that they had all of these dreams and this goal. No, their dreams were not the American dream. They weren't thinking about obtaining, this great life that America had to offer.
They didn't even know what America dream was.
Exactly. They were like, yo, I just want to go back home. I want to be free. I'm chained to the bottom of a ship for months at a time, and people are making me come out just to move around so that I don't get limp and I don't die. People next to me are dying or I'm vomiting, and we're using the bathroom like on ourselves. People are dying and we're just stuck here. Like, who's thinking about, oh my gosh, my grandchildren are gonna be so prosperous and great? Because clearly that didn't happen. In many cases, it still hasn't happened. So, like, what are you even talking about, yo?
Yeah. It's a classic case of what Ben Carson, we wish he had done, was stay in his lane. Politics is not the lane for you. And we hope that Nicki Minaj will learn this lesson from Ben Carson. Ben Carson should have stayed in medicine and not got in politics. Nicki Minaj should have stayed as a popular rapper and not got into battle rapping.
Commercial. Just do it. So,
because her clapback was weak.
And it's interesting seeing how she posted. And again, I'm saying this as somebody that respects Nicki Minaj. I always say I support music. I support good music. I still buy albums. So I've purchased her album. I actually mistakenly, because of iTunes, because of me purchasing.
Not mistakenly.
No, I purchased the same album twice. That's what I was going to say. Like, I purchased the pink print. I actually purchased the edited version and the unedited version, because I was buying it and didn't realize that I was clicking on the edited version, and I actually wanted the unedited version. So I had to end up buying it twice. So anyway, I support this project and I support her. But I think when we start talking about rap battles, right, we can't talk about rap battles to say I won because I'm selling all these records, or I won because I got the number one track, song, or whatever on iTunes. That doesn't constitute like winning a rap battle. So if we start talking about who's the greatest, probably businesswoman, or, you know, who's the greatest in terms of sales, okay, you know, we can do that. But, you know, classically, traditionally, what rapping is and what hip hop is, you get back to like the olden days when you had people, I say the olden days, like it's like ancient times, but, you know, back in the day, you know, when you had people that used to actually, there were ciphers, people were actually rapping and going at each other. It wasn't about, you can use that as a basis to kind of gloat, but it's like, what kind of bars are you dropping? And unfortunately, Nick, like, this just wasn't it, yo. No. It was, I keep seeing people argue. Apparently, like, Deion Sanders tweeted it out, like, oh, you know, Nicki Minaj put out, she was a businesswoman about it. She put out tracks that can be played on the radio. She brought in features.
That's so funny, Deion Sanders. He's so old.
Right. It's like, yo, you're
like, why even listen to this?
Right. Like, and then people are like, oh, yeah, the queen, she came out and she put in, you know, she dropped them and they're number one in iTunes. And all of these things are true and nobody can take that away from you. But at the end of the day, does that mean that your rap is better than Remy's? And it's just not. Like, and again, I say that in all fairness to say, too, that I don't think that Sheether ended Nicki Minaj's career, but it actually challenged her to step up to the plate. And unfortunately, she dropped the ball. Like, you take this amount of time to come out, and then when you come out, you drop this record and it mildly addresses her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess it addressed her in terms of her talking. There's like a line where she starts talking about, you know, she got surgery too, and she went to the same doctor that Ra went to, which is her friend from like Love and Hip Hop, and, you know, the doctor ain't do you as good as she did Ra, or something like that. Like, you know, she's addressing her, so you know that she's talking about her, but it's just like, yo, you should have done the same vigor that you had when it came to you going back at Lil' Kim and you releasing a whole track which ended up being a flop and being stupid, the song Stupid Ho. Like, if you came out with that song, if that same vigor that you put into, yo, let me establish myself as somebody that's, you know, great, then you should have did the same thing for Remy. The fact that you did, I can't really get with this idea of like, oh, well, you know, I sold the most records. That's great, but yeah. You're not winning, yo.
Yeah, and it wasn't memorable to me. I heard it on the radio, and I was just like, oh, this is a response? Like, this is nowhere near Sheether. Like, right. If Sheether is at a 10, this is not even hitting 0.
Right.
Like, this is nowhere near. Like, I just don't, this isn't even the same. Like, this is apples and oranges.
What makes people consistently talk about it is the fact that of the following that she has and it being on social media, and it being like No Frauds having Drake and
the mere fact that she brought people on with her is also further proof that you didn't do it right. Like, nobody brings people into them with a battle rap. Like, you don't bring people on. It's you and the other person. Right. That's how I understood it. But I'm not a hip hop expert.
She released, what's the name? 2 other tracks too. I don't know. I can't think of the titles of them, but she released 2 other tracks too. And it's like, I mean, again, I can give you the business model for it. Like, the business model, cool. Okay. You know, I can't really argue with you with the business model, but like, it's just, yeah.
It's like, I couldn't beat you in rap, but I'm going to try to beat you in business. And it's like, you start playing a whole different game.
Right. That's it. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's a whole nother game. Like, and that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can give you kudos and accolades for being able to, you know, be a businesswoman and be number one in terms of record sales and generate more revenue and all of this great stuff. Wonderful. Great. Kudos to you. But honestly, if we come down to you saying, and again, the reason that you hold Nicki Minaj to the standard is because this is what she purports herself to be. She purports herself to be, you know, I got bars. She purports herself to be, you know, these girls is my sons. Okay, well, if they your sons, school them. If they your sons, if they're dropping records, like if they're dropping a diss track, drop a diss track. And even if you want to say, oh well, she did it in a way that she wanted to make it commercial, Drake's Back to Back is commercial, but it's still a very direct, I'm going directly at you diss track. Do that. The last time she did that was stupid, ho. We saw what came of that. Like, she was the butt of every joke because it's like, what is this? So much so that you don't even take this and put it on the album. Why? Because you realize this is dumb. So let's do better. That's all I'm saying.
Well, speaking of rappers, Chance the Rapper did something incredible this weekend. This past week, he donated $1 million to the Chicago school district.
Yes.
And I was really, really thankful that he did that, because it was actually a football player who was inspired and is going to donate all of his endorsements to Chicago schools as well. So I think that's cool that he's inspiring people to do that. And I know other people have done it too, donated funds. My hope though with the funds is that they go to the right place. Because sometimes, when you write a check, and this happened with Zuckerberg donating all that money to, I think, New Jersey, and it didn't get allocated properly.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't do. But I think the good thing about Chance is the distinction between him and Zuckerberg. He really wants to be involved. So I saw him going to the schools this week and making sure. I think he's going to make sure that his money gets allocated properly. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, shout out to Chance the Rapper. Actually, Flotus tweeted him on that one too, which is pretty dope. And I think it's just dope too because it shows that we have a younger artist, a younger independent artist too, but a younger artist that is popular, that people are enjoying and get into, and their music is streaming, and so they get all the accolades as like some of the bigger time artists, but they're doing something. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is and saying, I care about these school systems, the same school systems that I went through. And I think it also makes another statement about the appreciation that people have coming from a public education system. I keep hearing so much now when we start talking about education and we start talking about school choice and we start talking about these people that have so much money and so many opinions about how things should go, and it kind of makes it seem like, well, nobody's satisfied with the public education system. And then there's so many critiques that we can give to many public education systems across the country. I mean, I'm sure we can critique ours from where we're from, but there is an appreciation for the way that it shaped my mind, the way that the great teachers that I had throughout that. And I think that's what Chance the Rapper is doing as well. He's saying like, yo, I believe in this, so I'm putting my money where my mouth is so that these kids can get an education. And honestly, if we improve the system, it creates a fair access for everybody to have the opportunity to choose to go to this school, but choose to go to this school because it's actually quality that's there. And I came out of it, and they could be able to come out of it too. So I think it's pretty dope. Shout out to Chance the Rapper.
Yes, y'all tell us what y'all think about our mimosas and orange juice. We will be back with our main dish. All right, now we're back with our main dish. Today we're going to talk about a Oscar winning film, Moonlight, which has gotten a lot of buzz over the last few months. I've seen it, Randall's seen it, and it definitely is a movie that you can't walk away and just be like, wow. It definitely sparks, a lot of thought. It's very thought-provoking. For me, it was very sad. And so, people tried to kind of pigeonhole the movie into a particular type of movie, but there was so much universally that I think could be gleaned, and both Randall and I think could be gleaned from this film, and that we want to talk about because we think it's important to not just put this film in a box, right. Because it fits so many other categories. Yeah. And I think we would be better served if we did that and looking at this film. So when I looked at it, I was like, man, this is a lot. It was like so emotional to definitely chronicle his life and what he went through just without him having people really to consistently love him.
Right.
And what that, and me and Randall has talked about this several times outside of Moonlight, like what it does for children to not have love from the people they're supposed to have love from first. So when you're born, your parents, it just, your grandparents, obviously, but, your parents, your mother, your father are supposed to love you unconditional. They're supposed to teach you how to love and be that safe haven for you. And when you don't have that, in this case, he didn't have it on either side. Like, he had his mom was I feel like she loved him, but that addiction, like, gripped her so strong that she couldn't really provide the love she needed to provide for him because she was addicted to this substance.
Right.
So how that affected him and what he had to go through and how he had to pretty much be alone and not be a child in critical stages of his life and his development, I think was just so sad for me. How did you feel about that?
So I definitely, I agree that was, is one of the toughest things to understand from the movie. I think that what that pointed out, and what I was so glad when we start talking about universal themes of the film, what I was really glad that showed is oftentimes, and it's my critique of, it's always been my critique, and I've said this 1,010 times. I always say this when we start talking about people that come from a very conservative position. Oftentimes that position is based on viewing the world or viewing everybody else with the same privileges and benefits that you have, right? Mm-hmm. And so we start to say that, a person should pull up their bootstraps because, I did it, or my grandparents did it, or my mom did it, or whoever did it, so they could do it too. Or we start to say things like, you're making excuses because I know this person that had, they come from the hood or the ghetto, and look what they've been able to do for themselves. So then you should be able to do that too. And just making those kind of blanket statements about people that are in a struggle or people that have gone without, and just making it seem as if, oh, well, all you have to do is do what that person did. And what Moonlight showed, especially in terms of showing his relationship with his mom, is it showed that there's so many people, and here's a story that is very true, and it's very real to someone. And I thought it was so powerful that the writer of the original book, Terrell McCraney, and even Barry Jenkins, he wrote the film, and he adapted the film from the book, and he also was the director, that they both said, we had parents, our moms were both addicted to crack. And here is, this story is shared by both of us. One's, we both are from the same place. We're both from Liberty City. We were in the same area. We didn't grow up. We didn't share the same parents. We don't know each other. We didn't grow up together in that sense. But this story hits home for us. And so it kind of chronicles the experience of somebody that doesn't have, that guiding light, if you will. It doesn't have that person that's at home, or that parent or guardian or whoever that is consistently responsible or showing up to show you how to tie your shoe, how to resolve conflict, how to navigate the world, how to deal with bullying, how to deal with questions that you might have about yourself, in terms of your sexuality, in terms of where to go. I feel like a lot of times we have people that miss that mark and think that, oh, well, a person should just be able to do this and you should be able to do that, without understanding where that person comes from. And so I just love the fact that this film showed that, and it showed it in a very authentic way. And I feel like the writer, the original book writer, as well as Barry Jenkins, talking about those things and saying hey, this is why this is, I understand this, and this hits home for me. What it does is it tells people that see the film, and people that have watched it, is let me understand something from a place that's not my own. Let me try to get this and get why this is so special, and understand that, wow, people really go through things and people go through different lives. So I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. You know what I'm saying? And it causes those people to kind of step in that space and understand that. So for me, that's one of the universal themes that I really loved and I really appreciated. And that's why I go so hard for people that are like from quote unquote hoods or ghettos or from struggles or that come from poverty, because a lot of times you are trying to figure out and navigate these spaces on your own. And even if you're somebody that doesn't have like a parent that is cracked out on drugs, oftentimes because of your parents' limited scope, in some cases, and not everybody. Again, one thing I always say, and I want to make sure that I say, is that what we have to do and what I think is so beneficial is that if you try to understand a person's unique perspective, you can really understand a lot more of why they do what they do and how they got there. But if you're always trying to find a blanket to say, oh, well, every person in the hood must have had a parent that's on crack, or every person in the hood must have had somebody that didn't love them. Like, that's not the case. But it's just like in talking about this situation or situations that are similar to that specifically, like you might not know, a person might not know what to do or how to do things. And as I was saying too about people that you might not have a parent that is on drugs, but you might have a parent that their scope of life is just limited. So they don't have the means and the tools to tell you, hey, here is how you navigate this. Here's what you need to do to get this done. Like, it literally just may be like you trying by trial and error. You've been exposed to some things that your parents haven't been exposed to. And so that's just you trying to figure it out. So anyway, I think that in terms of universal themes, I was very proud of the movie for showing that aspect of it, because I feel like it brought a story that is very familiar to a lot of people in that regard. It put that on the big screen, and it made people watch it, and it made people watch it with a sense of compassion and trying to understand, rather than just trying to throw somebody into like a blanket group.
Because it's like you're watching him, what it looks like for him day to day. You know, just not having anybody home when he got there, or seeing his mom on the couch, and then him having to be the man of the house as a boy and navigating through that space and never really having to have a childhood where he could be free. And it's almost like no place he went until he met Blue was safe for him. You know, when he went to school, he was tormented. When he went home, he was tormented.
Right.
Like, he didn't have a place of solace. Right. And so for me, you know, we've always talked about this. Your home needs to be your place of solace. Like, nobody wants to come home and be chaotic. You know, you might have chaos at work, but you're looking at a young guy who doesn't have a place of solitude.
And doesn't even know what that means. Doesn't even understand that that's a need, right? So when you start talking about, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm just going to throw that out there. When you start talking about when this person grows up, and this person gets to a place, like, you know, in their adult life, you don't even know that is something that you need, not even something that you want, but it's something that you need. Everybody needs a place where they can feel accepted, where they can feel safe, where they can express themselves, you know, freely and without critique of somebody, without somebody telling them that they're doing this wrong or this ain't right or you're not there. So if you think about just from that position, if somebody doesn't have that, how does their adulthood look? How does life look after that? How chaotic, again, does your life become when all you know is being alone? All you know is your interactions with people are troublesome. You're having to take on the responsibilities and the problems of the adults and the other people in your life before you. So how does that look when you become an adult? In many cases, it either recreates that same thing, or that so you kind of become chaotic, your life kind of becomes chaotic, or you become very like detached from everybody, in which case we'll see there. And again, not to jump ahead, but we saw in the film that happened. It became like, let me just detach from the world for the most part, likely besides what Teresa, Janelle Monáe's character, it was let me push back to everything else because I'm trying to keep this space where I don't have to deal with all of these stressors that I had to do and that it becomes so normal. And again, when we think about that and we see what that means, to me, it should push. And if you've seen the film, if you haven't watched it, when you do, what this film should really do is to give you a space and a place to talk from when you're considering other people's lives, because what has become, increasingly frustrating to me as an adult is realizing that when we're, opining on somebody's life and the decisions that somebody's making, or the indecisions that somebody's making, we're always doing it from a place of like, oh, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing this, because that is what we have deemed normal. That is what we've deemed as acceptable in our circle of friends, our family, our faith base, or whatever it is. Like, this is what is normal for us and what we deem and glean to be normal. And so if a person's not doing that, then we're usually talking about how they need to get to this place of normalcy without really understanding how they got to the place that they're in the first place. And
they might not even have a point of reference for what you're talking about.
Exactly. And how your point of reference oftentimes, and the reasons that you do the things that you do, is because you've probably been exposed to things that led you on that path to get there. Well, this person may not have. So rather than saying that, oh, well, you just need to get here, I hope that one of the things that people pull from watching the film, especially in watching the little scene, which is like the film is broken up into 3 different parts. So it's Little, Sharon, and Black. And Little is it chronicles Sharon, who's the main character of the film. It chronicles like his childhood, like a piece of his childhood, and it kind of starts and opens the story up about how things were when he was a child. So when you're watching that scene, I hope that when you're watching that part of the film, my hope is that you realize that, wait, here's his point of reference. Here's his starting point. Here is where he is kind of developing the things that is going to lead to him being an adult. So if we are using that as a starting point, you start to really understand how he got to the path that he's on. And so once you critique Black, even if you critique Sharon, but once you critique Black, that's what Black is based off of. Black is based off of the experiences of Little. So rather than just kind of holding Black to be this outcast or this horrible person, you really got to understand where he comes from. And my hope is that that's what people are getting. And I think that's what should come out of, just that space and being in that space and looking at the character, looking at the film from that position.
Because you see like him, how he connects with the different characters, whether it's Mom, Blue, or Kevin, and that all shapes his development in a particular way. Like, even when you think about, his mom first and his, just him struggling to connect, but you could tell that he wants the relationship, but it's so much hurt because of what's been done,
right,
and what's been said. But at the end, you see that he still goes to see her.
Right.
He still wants it, but he's not sure how to get it. He's not sure like how to navigate that space. He just knows. And even when she's talking, trying to tell him that she's kind of grown, it's still hard for him to accept, but he still wants it.
Right.
And just that obstacle and like trying to get somebody to a place where they want something, but they're not able to really grasp it. And then they stay away from the things that they want because they just don't know how to navigate the process.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I think too, since you brought up his mom and you brought up, you brought up Blue and you brought up Kevin. So these characters, which the characters mean so much in terms of, pushing him to get to a certain place. But when we start to talk about Blue, one of the things that was amazing to me in the film, I really, the thing that I love the most about this film, I've actually watched it 3 times now, and the thing that I love the most about it is that it adds depth and to these characters and these people that play certain positions and certain roles that oftentimes people really don't understand. And people always try to write them off as just being these horrible, villainous people, right? So we take the character Blue, and I was explaining because a lot of people saying, Mahershala Ali is getting, so many awards, and so many people are just like, raving about his performance in Moonlight, but he was only in there for a few scenes of the movie, like for the beginning of the movie. He wasn't in there. It was just kind of like his character's spirit, if you will, carried on throughout it, but you didn't see him actually acting. But the thing that I think that resonated so much with a lot of people, and it was so shocking to a lot of people, which is funny because I'm like, this is normal. Like, this is what happened. Like, these people aren't, soulless people that just are trying to kill everybody. But it's this idea that this guy who's a drug dealer, who is very hard, very masculine, in the traditional sense of what masculinity is, he's doing something that is arguably horrible for the community. He's adding to why people are dying, why people are cracked out, why families are broken.
Why Chiron even has the problem he has with his mom.
Exactly. Why Chiron has the problem that he has with his mom, but he's also saving Chiron from that very thing. He's also giving Chiron the love and the attention that nobody else, even his mom, isn't giving him. And you see this coming from a drug dealer, right? And even the way that he handles Chiron by taking him, of course, finding him in the abandoned place, taking him to just go get something to eat. And he's asking Chiron questions, and Chiron's not responding to him because he's so focused on just eating, because he probably hasn't had a proper meal in forever. And then he goes to pull the meal away from him, and Chiron just kind of sits back and like, I don't want you to hurt me, but I also want this food. And the way that Mahershala Ali's character, Blue, the way that he responded to him in that way, he was sensitive enough with him that he took care of him, but he also showed him, that fatherly, that male love that he needed to get. And so I feel like for a lot of people, his character was shocking because you've never seen anything like that, right? You've never seen somebody with this much depth, somebody that could be a bad guy seemingly, but still be a good guy in a sense. And then even too, I think it showed in like the last scene of the portion of the movie with Little, when he asks him, when they're talking about, so it's 2 things, when they're talking about the whole, like, what it means to be a faggot thing. And then they're talking about also, his mom being on crack, and he asks him, like, do you sell drugs or do you sell crack? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, so my mama's on crack. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and you sell it? He's like, yeah. He gets up and he walks out. And that was so pivotal because it was one of those things of like, it described the complexity of his character. And really the reason why I feel like so many people were just into Blue's character, because it's like, so you're doing something bad, but honestly, if you weren't doing it, she'd probably be getting it from somebody else, like, because she's just not going to stop. If you stop, she's going to find another supplier somewhere. So it's bad, and yeah, you shouldn't be doing it, but you also are taking care of her kid. And so it shows how, in many cases, and I've said this before, how there's so many people, and it just, even I know people that I know from Jacksonville, that I've heard of from Jacksonville, that have been, drug dealers, but that have tried to do something good for the community. We hear about it a lot in Atlanta as well. Like, you have these community-based organizations which are started by the leaders of the community, which are in many cases people that used to deal with drugs or still deal with drugs. And they take something, they give back to the children of the community to try to give them an opportunity. And so it's like this, it shows the complexity of this cycle of the kind of give and take and the good and the bad that comes through it in that moment. I just think Blue's character was really, really pivotal, and really, he did so much. That character did so much for Chiron in that stage of him being little, because it loved on him in ways he needed to be loved. But it also, like, you know, kind of gave him that guidance that he needed, especially when they started talking about the piece of, like, what it means to be a faggot, and him explaining to him that, you know, that's a term that people use to hurt gay people, and him saying, like, well, am I gay? Like, how do I know I'm gay? And he's like, you know, you'll just know. He was like, I can't tell you that, but you'll know. And then Janelle Monáe's character saying, like, you'll know when it's time, being like, as a kid, this is not something that you need to be worried about. Like, and I think that again speaks to how so oftentimes, you know, kids are young and people are telling them that they're gay, guys or girls, like, you're gay or you're not this and you're not this and you're not that. And you don't have a person that's at home that's reinforcing positive thoughts to you or telling you that if this is the case, you're okay. There's still great things about you. And, like, kids aren't really grappling with, like, sex in the terms of what adults are thinking about. Kids are just like, I'm trying to figure out who I am. And so them saying that to him, like, yo, you'll figure it out. You'll know when it's time for you to know. But at this moment, you just need to be focused on being a little kid. And although they didn't say it that overt, that like in that way, and that specifically, that whole scene to me was just really powerful, because it's like, that's what they're allowing him to do. They're allowing him the space to, like, just be a kid and figure out the kid. Because it's like, you got enough stuff to worry about. Your mom's on crack. You literally are home by yourself all the time. You're getting picked on and bullied by little kids, so much so that you have to run into an abandoned crack house and see crack pipes and just trying to find safety and solace in a crack house. Like, what does that even say? You know what I'm saying? And then now you're trying to also grapple with what it means to be, like, what your sexuality means, or what it means because people are trying to put, you know, tell you that you are this, or you want to engage in this type of sexual activity when you're not even thinking about sex. Like, you're just thinking about, how do I live? Like, that to me was really powerful. And I think that's one of it gives the baselines of, like, what people should be thinking about when you see this film. So
yeah, because it seemed like they were trying to give him his childhood back when everybody was trying to take it away from him.
Exactly. And they were the ones, you know, their characters were the ones to do that, because he didn't have it from nowhere else.
One of the interesting things I think that played out is his relationship with Kevin, which was a big portion of the movie, from him being with him throughout the 3 stages. We saw him in each stage of Chiron's life. And one of the things you brought out that I didn't even think about was that throughout the 3 stages of his life, he was the one who treated him like a person.
Exactly.
Like, and so him having that point of reference for him that was a consistent friend, besides, you know, the middle stage where he did the altercation. But you explained it to me in a way, and you provide a valid point that I didn't see before. But I think that, you know, him having those, and those are the connections that he had with the 3 people, the mom, Blue, and Kevin, and how, like, even in those stages, even as we're talking, I'm thinking about the fact that he still wasn't really able in any of those to articulate how he felt.
Right.
Really, in any conversation.
Right.
With people.
Right.
It's like a disconnect.
Right. And you think about it, that disconnect came from a place of never being shown or taught how to do that, right? So then if we start talking about what that leads to an adulthood where you don't know how to express yourself, in which we saw with Black, right? We saw with Black that he had become this, you know, he had become Blue times 10, like Blue on 100. He's muscular, you know, he's still trapping just like Blue was, you know, he got his he has a nice car, he has a place to live, he's on his own, he's doing his thing. And for all intents and purposes, he is, kind of built this fort around himself. But we see that when he sits down with his mom and he's talking to his mom, he doesn't know how to tell her that I'm hurt. He doesn't know how to say, like, your choices and the choices that you didn't make, it impacted me, and I'm still hurting and trying to fight through that today. He doesn't have the language, the vocabulary. When I say vocabulary, I'm not saying like he don't know the words, but I'm saying like he just doesn't know how to use them, and probably doesn't even know that he needs to use them in order to express that to her, because he was never given that, And
do you think that this question just came to my mind. Do you think that he felt like because he was trying to be so like this hard guy that he couldn't do that?
I think that if he thought about it, he would probably feel like I can't do it. But I think when you get to a place when you build yourself up out of trying to protect yourself from the hurt that you've experienced previously, a lot of things you're not thinking about why I'm doing it. You're just doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So he's not thinking a reaction. He's not thinking like, oh, I can't do this because I can't show emotion. He's not thinking about that. That's just who he is. He's gotten to a place where it's like, I don't do that, because in doing that and being open and opening myself up to people and to things, I've been hurt. Like, and do right. I've been hurt, and I've been hurt in unwarranted spaces. Like, I've been getting picked on since I was a little kid. I've been getting teased by even my mom. I think it was even powerful too that, his mom, the scene with his mom in Blue, when his mom is basically kind of like talking the fact that she's saying, do you ever ask him why the other little boys, he don't walk like the other little boys or talk like the other little boys, or why they always picking on him? Like, basically, I'm sure that she's said those type of things to him as well. So it's like, I've never, even as a kid, as an innocent kid, I've never gotten the love and the protection that I needed from anybody. I was always getting these unwarranted and unsolicited opinions and thoughts and, comments and stuff like that. So I've gotten to a place as an adult where I don't even create a space for that. I don't need that. And I'm not even thinking that I need it. I don't even thinking about it. So yeah, but to kind of segue back to Kevin, and Kevin's character, like just kind of what we were talking about before. And I was telling you about the relationship with Kevin, and the thing that I kind of just want to make sure we mention, because I think a lot of people may not have realized that as well. I've talked to a couple people about it, and they were like, oh, in the same way. Like, I didn't think about it that way. But in terms of when we saw Black, during the scene of him being black, when Kevin calls him, right? Mm-hmm. And you see this guy who is, he's built this fort. He's blue. He's super macho, and he's the dude, and he's the man. When he realizes that he's on the phone with Kevin, he kind of breaks down and becomes this 7-year-old kid again. And like, it's like he's lost. He's kind of off his rocker at that point. He can't really, that's why when he gets off the phone, he started doing all these push-ups, and he like, curling, because it's like, I gotta build back up to be this man, because I just got broke from this situation. But if you go back to where that comes from, the last time that he's interacted with Kevin was they just had this moment, which, people have kind of argued. Like, I have a friend that saw it and was just like, I felt like that was so unnecessary. The scene was so unnecessary. They are just like putting little boys in a position, in a place that they shouldn't be in. And I feel like they're teenagers. I think it's ignorant to think that teenagers aren't exploring themselves sexually. Like, that never happens. Like, come on. And I felt like the way that they did it, you saw like hand movements of like grabbing the sand, or like, being shoulder to shoulder or stuff like that. Like, I feel like the way that it was shot and it was shown was, it was handled with care. to address the subject, it was handled with so much care, and I thought that, you know, it was handled in an appropriate way. But so they just had this moment of which, for Sharon, this is something that we've seen that he's been wondering about this about himself since he was a kid. Here is something that he also, you know, hasn't been able to talk to other people about because he's always being teased about that thing. So I just shared this kind of moment with this guy who I feel like has always, since I've known him, has treated me. He's pointed out the fact that when they were little kids, he was like, you know, you different, but you cool. Like, you all right. You know, you like, you my homie. Like, you a little weird. Like, why you walk like that? Or why you talk like that? Or why you don't ever do this like us? But you're all right. So we just had this moment. But then this bully, the guy, he basically forces this person that I know cares about me, that I know, you know, doesn't think that I'm horrible like he does. He just forced this person to, like, beat me down. And in that moment, we saw the frustration and the anger of Sharon stand up, not for himself, but stand up for Kevin. And in which it became like, yo, you're taking away the good thing that I have. You know what I'm saying? Like, this little good thing, this thing of normalcy, this thing of solace, which I finally have been able to get in a space where this person treats me, no matter where we go, this person treats me like the same person. And I think it's important to note too that he wasn't an adult, because I feel like oftentimes, you know, people might get those things, but they might get it from like somebody like the Teresa character, Janelle Monáe's character, which is, she's an older person. So it's like, oh yeah, she's kind of giving me that, but it's not like my mom. She's like an older person that just like feels sorry for me, if you will. Like, it could be viewed as that. But you have Kevin that's like, this is my peer, and here's a peer that views me as like normal. And he realizes in that moment of them having to have that like squaring off is like, honestly, if you don't hit me and if you don't like, you know, beat my behind, then everybody that's out here gonna whoop both our behinds. And then not only am I risking myself of getting, you know, hurt, but I'm risking you of getting hurt too. And I care about you because I know what's going on. So it's like, he stood there, and that's why he kept getting up every time like Kevin would knock him down, because it's like and Kevin's like, stay down so I don't have to do this. And he keeps standing up because he's like, I want it to be real and authentic. So they know that it's not you, because there was like that little scene right before where the guy was basically saying like, what, you scared? Like, you don't want to do it? Like, you too scared to do it? And I feel like that's why Sharon came back and retaliated against the guy, the original bully dude. I don't remember his name, forgive me. But he retaliated against him because it shows like, you're the reason. You represent all of the people that hurt people that I care about, right? You represent all of the things that hurt people that I care about. The crack that hurts my mom, death that took Blue out. The fact that Janelle Monáe's character, Teresa, is by herself and she's in this house. And so it's just her, and I'm coming over and feeling like I want to be around her. I want to spend time with her, but I don't really know. I can't really say it. I'm still uncomfortable with, you know, just kicking it in her house, although she consistently says like, yo, it's, you know, mi casa es su casa. Like, this show, you know, you welcome anytime, you can stay here, yada, yada, yada. And I still don't know. It's because like, I don't want to connect with these people and something bad is happening, but that's what you represent, all of the bad things. So I'm whooping this behind on like premise of, life has really knocked me down and you not finna take this person away from me. And he did it. So I went through, I said all to say, like, I feel like that's important that people get and understand that, because I feel like it's so easy to not really grasp how big that scene was in terms of the relationship between Sharon and Kevin, and what it meant for Sharon to actually learn to stand up for something that he cared about, which in that case was Kevin, because that was the one person that treated him like he was normal throughout the whole time. So
yeah, I think that was good. I think it's so much depth to this film that like I completely missed that. the first time around. I haven't seen it again, but I've missed that. So I'm glad you pointed that out to me, because I would have never got that from what happened.
Yeah.
The other big question from this, I think that is huge, is this a gay film? There were so many people who said they wouldn't go see it because of that reason. I actually was looking in the space that I occupy, which is mostly, conservative evangelicalism, was there any articles written on it? And I actually stumbled upon a good article that was written by Christianity Today, which is actually a conservative evangelical space, which is white conservative. And the author was saying that he thought it was a great film for people to see. And I thought that was interesting because of the that it came from. But he was just saying that, he was basically arguing that it wasn't a gay film, and that was like, while that was a theme in it, he felt like we needed to see it to see the complexities of people's life, and that's what we've been arguing most of this episode. Right. That the depth of it, he noted that the author wanted people to see even images of a grown man cooking for another grown man, like a dude teaching, like Blue teaching him how to swim, right. Things of that nature that can be pulled from it. So, I completely agree with the author, because I didn't walk away from the film thinking, oh, this is a gay film. Right. I think that people kind of tried to paint it that way, and they would miss that would be rarely boxing this film in. Now, there was the component of Kevin and Chiron that was there, but I just feel like that was there was one scene, even the ending scene wasn't even really, anything like sexual to me. I just think that it was more of a multifaceted film that showed the complexities of somebody's life. I didn't think it was a gay film. What are your thoughts?
So I think that I kind of get annoyed. I told you this before about it's in the same way that I get annoyed when people be like, oh, it's a black movie. It's like, yeah, it's a black movie, but we're dealing with some themes and some things that are happening in situations that are very universal. In many cases, like, we know what oppression is. We know what fear is. We know what being lonely is. We know what being, scared is. We know, there's so many things that we all know, black, white, gay, straight, whatever. We all get that. I think that the development and the discovery of his sexuality was very important and a huge theme in it. And so I think if you look at it from that way, you can say oh, yes, it's a gay film, but that means because it's telling the story of a person that is gay, that's homosexual, that is going on this journey of figuring that out and how that looks. But along with that does not separate him from somebody who is heterosexual that is probably going on that same journey. What I think that when you think about the film too, which the fact that the writer of the original book, Terrell McCraney himself, and the director, Barry Jenkins, the fact that Barry Jenkins is heterosexual, Terrell McCraney is homosexual, but this story is they both will say this story is kind of like the chronicle of my life. Barry Jenkins says the only thing that is not, I can't identify with is the struggle with my sexuality in that space, but I can identify with being picked on and bullied. I can identify with having a parent that was addicted to crack and how that impacted myself and how that impacted our families. I can identify with the fact of, in being bullied, I had nobody that was kind of standing up for me there. So it's for me, it's kind of people having this, I gotta step away, or I can't watch something because it's a gay film or it's promoting something. It's honestly telling a story that we need to hear, whether you agree, disagree, or whatever. And that's that whole conversation, I feel like that's, if you're somebody, even if you're somebody that says, I disagree, but I disagree with, you know, homosexuals or gay people or whatever. If you're somebody that takes that position, then should you not want to learn or to know what has gotten at least one person's story to say, wow, this tells a piece of their life. This tells a piece of their story and how they got there. So now I have more of an understanding of, you know, this one individual that I disagree with, but I still say that I love, or I still challenge myself to love. Like, should I want to take a minute to try to understand their story? So I feel like the relationship, and it wasn't so much about the relationship with, I think it's about the relationship with Chiron and Kevin. Like that is important. And I think it is the theme of, you know, his discovery into manhood and his sexuality are definitely important themes. And so, you know, if that's what you define it being a gay film, it's like, yeah, but it also is telling a story that is very, very connected to so many people that anybody can understand. Again, the director, he's heterosexual. He's the director, and he adapted the movie. He wrote the movie version from, you know, the book. And so if he can read this book as a heterosexual male and say like, wow, this is my life. Besides, you know, like certain things, this is my life, and I can get that. Then I think we can all pull something from it. And I think what it does is it challenges, what the film has done is it really challenges us to stop closing the door on people when there's a difference or there's something that we don't understand or don't agree with or don't believe in. Like, it's a lot of things that make us very similar, and a lot of things that we can learn from somebody else that we purport to want to help if we just take the time to do so. So I think that, you know, I can answer the question by saying, like, is it a gay film? Like, on one regard, I'll be like, yeah, it is. But that's like, it is. But I would say that to a person that's like, you know, okay with seeing the film in that regard. But I guess to a person that isn't, I'll be like, nah, it's not a gay film, because technically it's not. Like, it's not.
But what makes a film a gay film, though? I guess that would be
I think the only thing for many people is just the fact that there is some sort of mention or acknowledgement of a gay interaction or relationship or anything like that. Because again, the movie doesn't have like a sex scene, but that doesn't take away.
I saw a lot of people like that say they wouldn't see it because of that reason, that love scandal. So I'm confused. Like, does that make
exactly? That's what I'm, and that's
how
what
to
I
get away
mean.
with murder?
Yeah, or anything that's honestly on TV or Apple, because you probably have an iPhone and Tim Cook is gay and Steve Jobs was a quote unquote to somebody a gay sympathizer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, we can't say that we shouldn't say I'm going to not engage something that it could be beneficial to my own life and my own existence. But to say that I'm not going to engage it because I'm like staunchly disagree. It is, and I try to tread lightly with making these very same parallels with like race and sexuality, because in no regard am I trying to say that like historically the experiences are the same or have been the same or anything like that. But it's like, I always think about, and what kind of really helped me to get to a place of really trying to understand just people in general, everybody's differences, was like the same way I will challenge a white person to understand that, you know, the racism of this administration, of what has come out of this administration, or the racism of, you know, anybody's racism, how that hurts not only me, but it will in turn hurt you, because there's a certain mindset and a certain ability of like supremacy that this person has that will, at some point in time, if you don't meet this very rigid standard of what's normal for them, you too can become it. So whether you're a woman, whether you're somebody that's poor, whether you're somebody that believes differently, like, you standing by idly and watching somebody mistreat me is going to turn into somebody mistreating you at some point in time. And so what you want to do is kind of nip it in the bud in the beginning so we don't have that problem. It's kind of the same, logic of like, while I can say like, hey, I can see you saying like, I don't want to watch a film where there's like, full on sex scenes. Like, yeah, because you probably don't want to watch a film where there's like full on sex scenes of anybody, honestly. Like, if you're just not that person. But I will watch a film where I do want to see like where somebody's coming from and like understand why this story is getting so much critical acclaim and why it's touching so many different people, and realize that like it's touching people that are conservative and people that are not conservative. Like it's touching, people that are black and people that's not black. Like it's touching so many different people. So like, why do we do this, and what can I learn from this? And like, how can I move beyond, oh, well, it just addresses gayness. Well, everything addresses gayness. Like, it's just a thing.
It's not. Yeah, I think the way people portraying it is like a soft porn flick, and it's nowhere near that. I mean, you could honestly see more on daytime TV. Like,
I mean, yeah, because I didn't porn. That would be, I'm like, wow, like that's not even.
No, but I think close. When people think of that, that's how their mind goes, and it's like you're really chronicling a journey. And I think people have the wrong perception. There's literally no real sex scenes in the film, like at all. Right. So, well, I guess Kevin with the girl, but that's still.
Oh yeah, that was the dream thing. Okay, because I was like, wait, the Kevin with it. Oh, okay, but I do remember.
Yeah, but it's not like, this is not like a soft porn flick. I mean, it's just not that.
It's really not.
So I think if you get that out of your mind and say, this is not, it's not a movie really about sex at all. It's about somebody trying to, their journey and them struggling through childhood and navigating through really just unfortunate circumstances that kept happening over and over again. Like, and trying to figure out how a person got from point A to point B, because a lot of times we look at people at where they are and don't think back to what they had to navigate through. And right. I think that's one of the things that this movie really, challenged me to look at a person and say, okay, this is their present, but let me go back and talk to them and see what their experience was like. Exactly. Like what they dealt with and how that affected them and what their relationship is with their family and all of that stuff. And I think that's, if you could pull anything out of this movie, that would be, to me, you got to really look at the journey of a person.
Right.
From where they've been and where they are now. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that out of the film. And I think that is something that honestly everybody should walk away from, even for myself too. Like I watched the film and I was in love with the story and how it was put together. And I'm very, very careful and critical about how people talk about, hood experiences and how things are. I'm very sensitive to people making a mockery of things. I'm very sensitive to people trying to make it seem like, hood people, or even if it's a hood person that's on crack, that there's just this one-dimensional character that don't really have nothing and, don't think about anything, or that aren't aware of that there's something better out there, or that they, are struggling and things like that. And I feel like the movie handle it in such a way that it was very authentic and very real. And, it showed that these are people in the same way that, in a place of wealth and privilege, you're not just all about buying material things or talking about how much money you have. People that don't have those things, they're not just all about not doing it. So I think it was really dope. And yeah, I'm glad we had this conversation, and I think that we've been talking for a while. We tried to keep it in a short, kind of a short amount of time, but I feel like the conversation was just really good, and we can talk about this movie, in a lot more detail, and a lot of the themes that come out, and a lot of the universal themes. And I will say that, like, if you're somebody that has seen the movie, or if you're somebody that hasn't seen the movie, like, approach this movie with thinking about those universal themes. And I think that's the way to really get a lot of the lessons and a lot of, the things that are coming out this, and how you can view the movie as something beyond, like, if it's made for a certain crowd of a certain sexual orientation. It's like, no, it's a film that actually is very powerful and can be impactful to anybody. So you guys hit us up and let us know if you've seen the movie, and if you haven't seen the movie, what's stopping you from seeing it, and just talk to us and engage with us about the movie in general. I think it's a great film. I think that's why we saw it take home Best Picture at the Oscars, and I was really, really excited and proud about that, because we have this film that is touching on so many different things that as a society we don't really talk about from a space of just realness and being an actual thing. We don't talk about it from that. So being able to see this film from there was I think really great, and was really huge for our community and so many of us. So anyway, you guys hit us up. Let us know what you think. Use the hashtag ChatBC. Hit us up on Twitter at Brunch Culture and on Instagram at Brunch_Culture. And that's going to wrap up our main dish, and we'll be back for our toast or roast. All right, and we are back with our toast or roast, and I'm going to kick it off again. This week I have a toast, and it'll be really fast. Y'all know I like to talk. So this week's toast for me goes to the show Underground. It premiered, the second season premiered this Wednesday at 10 on WGN. If you have not seen it, you need to get to On Demand and get to somebody's cable and watch it. It's a really, really great show. And I think that what I love, again, too, in this time of people saying stuff like slaves were, immigrants coming over for a dream. This show really tackles, some of the realness and some of the things that happen. Like, it is still a show. And so, certain things like can be arguably fiction about, like, were slaves really laying around all day when they were being forced to work? Were they laying around and like getting high and stuff like that? Like, that's you can argue that point and do some research over your own and maybe educate some people about that. But the show in itself, I think it's amazing because it shows the willpower of people, of our people. It shows the strength of our people. It shows how, the love of somebody for their family and for their partner that has found freedom and chosen to go back into the nuts and bolts of trying to fight for freedom just to save their family and stuff. It shows like those aspects, and not that we didn't know that this existed, but I think it's one of those things, like, we know it existed, but it's important to show that to other people so they can see how, we are not some one-dimensional people that only care about ourselves, and why family is so important to so many of us, and why we love each other so fervently. And so Underground is a great show. If you haven't watched it, I think maybe Hulu or Netflix has the first season. If so, you can go back and watch that and catch up on season 2. I think it's going to be a great season. I'm looking forward to it. They have Harriet Tubman in this season. And she is like not playing no games with nobody. And I think it's amazing. And she has this one part, this one scene where she talks about like what her daddy taught her. And she said it in such a way, just like every little daddy's girl is just like, I ain't putting up with this because my daddy is this. And like, as frustrating as that can be at times, I think it's so great to show how, a dad just loving on his daughter, even during that time and back in that space, and then putting that line in there, just like a daddy really loving on his daughter, like inspired her and just made her the greatest thing ever, and just made her truly believe in herself because she got that kind of love. So I thought it was really dope. If you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. The show comes on WGN at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. So make sure y'all check it out and let us know what you think about this season.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check it out. I got so many shows that I need to watch. I got to catch up. But it sounds like an incredible show. I've heard so many great reviews about it, so I got to check it out. I want to toast this week. I want to toast my co-host, Randall Keith. because he doesn't publicize this, but he's a part of the NAACP, and I've been wanting to get more involved and engaged in the community, and him talking about his interaction really inspired me to really get involved in my local chapter of the NAACP. So this past Thursday, I went to my first meeting, and I'm really excited. I'll be joining a couple of the committees, the Economic Empowerment and the Religious Committee. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really excited to get engaged. The chapter here doesn't have a lot of young people. So I'm really excited about, kind of getting there and throwing fresh ideas around for the community. And so I just appreciated the wisdom that they were giving me and talking about, some of the programming that I didn't know was already out there. And so many times we think, we got to recreate the wheel, when really it's just like these organizations that are already established need us as young people to join and be a part so these things can function properly. Exactly. Because it's not about the lack of access, it's about the lack of participation. So I think that's something that, I really just pulled from that meeting, like getting us as young professionals to participate in these already established organizations like the NAACP, the Urban League, the Black Caucus, whatever it is, to get involved and, so they could they're trying to pass the torch, but right. We got to be there for the torch to be passed. To receive
the torch, right?
Yeah. So let's get in place. So I'm inspired, and thank you, Randall, for inspiring me. By your actions and being in the NAACP. So shout out to Randall Keith, the co-host of Brunch Culture.
Thank you. Nah, I appreciate it. That's what it's about. I mean, we say this all the time, and we have our mushy sessions, but you inspire me in so many things. And so just for me to be able to inspire you to do that, I think is great. And I think you'll find that there's a lot of work to be done, but there's so many people that are older than us that have been carrying the torch and, running this race and doing some great things in the community. And they really need people like us that are tech savvy, that are social media savvy, that, are on the scene and out there and doing stuff, and have friends that are doing things, and even in our career spaces that are doing great things. And we have certain expertise and abilities to do other things outside of, just this one position or whatever. Like, they need us in there with our ideas and doing it. So I think it's great. I think it's dope. So we're going to leave you guys with this week's good vibe. Again, our good vibe is a quote that we want to use to carry all of us through the week. This week's good vibe is: setting goals takes desire, but completing them takes determination. And that quote comes from Mr. Ron Hawkins. Y'all know that. I mean, it speaks for itself. All of these good vibes usually speak for themselves, but it's one thing to set the goal, and to do that, but actually completing it's going to take a lot of determination. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of falling and getting back up and just being determined to finish it. So make sure that as you go through your week, and honestly, as you go through your life, you're checking up on those goals you set, but you're also fighting to make sure that you're determined enough to see them through. So that wraps up another episode of Brunch Culture for this week. Again, we always thank you guys so much for listening to the show, for supporting the show, for checking in on us, for holding us accountable, for engaging with us, for giving us feedback. We love you guys. We love creating the show. We love, being a part of this whole Brunch Culture family and this podcast community. Shout out to podcasters, for people that are creating content, whether you listen to any type of podcast, like, make sure that you're sharing it with people, and you're giving, putting it out there, of how important it is to support creators, and how important it is for us to be able to control our own narratives and tell our own stories and support our own things. So shout out to podcasters. You guys, make sure you can you interact with us. You can hit us up on Twitter at Brunch Culture, on Instagram at Brunch_culture. Check out our website, which looks beautiful. Thanks to my co-host, Miss Lisa V. It's brunchculturebc.com. All of our episodes are there. You can see pictures of us being crazy, interacting with us, figure out how you can get in contact with us on social media. Check out our Instagram too. Our Instagram is popping, if I do say so myself. Thanks also to Lisa V. So y'all get on us on Instagram. We're on Instagram again at Brunch_culture. And as always, remember, here at Brunch Culture, everything is up for discussion.